Time once again for my weekly live stream. Last few weeks we've been doing Game Informer magazine, and this is the last of the 3 Game Informer magazines that I have, so that's going to be the subject of today's live stream. This being issue 172, which came out in August of 2007. Cover story here is for a game called Prototype. Not familiar with that game, but on our last stream I did have one viewer chime in and said they made 2 of those games, and apparently they were pretty good. So there's a close-up right there for that. And then, yeah, must-read previews, Darksiders. I remember last week I mentioned, is Darksiders that old Capcom fighting game series with the succubus and the mummy and the naked cat girl, but that's Darkstalkers, so mistake on my part there. Hey there, bud. Hey to you as well. Thanks for tuning in. On the back, there's an ad for Old Spice deodorant, which has a bear and a beautiful woman. Not really sure what that has to do with deodorant, but I guess that's how ads were back then. How are things going? Things are going good. Thank you for asking. There's an ad in the inner cover for Universe at War. Not familiar with that title. Any plans tonight? I don't know for sure yet. Might just end up staying in. There's an ad here for Dell Computers. Remember back when they had the Steve ad campaign for Dell Computers that had the goofy late teens, early 20s guy, and he ended up getting fired from the gig because he was arrested for marijuana possession. Yeah, crazy. And now that's practically legal everywhere. So I wonder if Dell will bring in Steve back. Who knows? PlayStation 3 game here called Lair. Taylor. Okay, good. We got another 1, 2. How is your weather? It's really cold and windy outside, but thankfully no major inclement weather. You rule, brother. Thank you very much. You rule too. Now let's go down the list, see what else we got here. Okay, here we have an ad for the U.S. Army Reserve. It's snowing here. No kidding. Yeah, out here in Las Vegas, it almost never snows except on the mountains. Snow down at the ground level that actually sticks around is pretty rare. And then here's the table of contents, of course, Prototype being the cover story. Have our staff list here, pretty much the same as the last issue. And then there's a 2K Sports All-Pro Football 2K8 game on this page. And again, the one thing that kind of surprised me in the last few live streams, used to own that magazine back in the day. I think a lot of people did, because if I'm not mistaken, this is the magazine that GameStop premium members would get back in the day. There's some of the staff. I'm not really familiar with these people, but the thing that surprised me in the last few episodes is there's actually no women on the staff, at least not the writing staff. Any good concerts coming up at the Counts? Okay. For those who don't know, I live in Las Vegas, and Counts Vamp is the big rock and roll venue that I go to my concerts at. Next week, I'm going to be going and seeing tributes to STP and Pearl Jam. Those should be pretty cool. There's an ad for a racing game called Dirt here, and then there's the GI Spy section, which has some candid photos from the CD industry underbelly of video games. So it looks like, I'm guessing these are like the Game Informer staff. There's a guy that actually has a Gears of War guitar. That's pretty cool. Megadeth actually did a song called Gears of War, which I believe was a tie-in for the game, but not totally sure about all that. Okay, Dear GI, the readers strike back. Asking here about, if people were impressed by the Halo 2 beta. I haven't really owned a lot of Microsoft stuff over the years other than computers, so I've never actually played Halo, believe it or not. And then they're talking about Guitar Hero and rhythm games, big delays in the Nintendo development. People can send in, hints, and they can send up captions for pictures. And then they got like fan art over here. Nintendo Power did something similar where people could send in fan art, so that's pretty cool. The Return of Marathon, Classic Hits Xbox Live Arcade. I don't know what Marathon is. As you can see, there's a lot of franchises in here I'm actually not familiar with, but there is some interesting stuff that I'm eager to go look up when I get a chance. Medieval 2 Total War Kingdoms ad here. Brash moves on movies. Then you got, Data File, Contra Continue. They're making a Contra 4 for the DS. If you had to pick 3 favorite bands, could you? I know I'm on the subject of bands instead of what you're doing on here, so I apologize. No, that's okay. I appreciate anyone chiming in. To answer your question, no, I could not name 3 favorite bands. I have about 200 favorite bands, so that's way too difficult to narrow down. Yeah, and then, here's a look at that ad and this thing about the game, movies, and so forth. The ties that divide. Is game development a cooperative or competitive game? Developers versus publishers. A featurette of sorts in here. And then that's continued here. Got some creative art to go along with it. Got an ad for a game here called Overlord. And then that thing about love the Battle Jacket Kid stuff you do, dude. Thank you for that. I'm not sure if the Battle Jacket Kid's going to remain an ongoing series just yet, but we'll see what happens going forward. Here's that Overlord ad. There was a World War II zombie movie called Overlord a few years ago, but I'm guessing this is something unrelated. Yeah. Lord of the Guitar Heroes. I guess this is a guy who is pretty highly ranked at Guitar Hero. On the other side, they've got an ad for the United States Marines. Kind of interesting that, Game Informer actually had the armed forces doing ads in their magazines. Yeah. Greetings from Korea. Game Informer tours the world's most devoted video game culture. That's interesting. I wouldn't exactly think of that as being a huge gaming mecca for the world, but if in Korea they got a great gaming population, that's very cool. More pictures here as well from Korea. Looking toward the future, history of an explosion. Okay, they got an NHL Enforcers game here. New PSP in the works. I'm guessing that's probably what ended up becoming the PSP Vita. PS3 price drop. They got to name that game section. Over here they've got a think about trying Blu-ray movies free. The Blu-ray format would have been fairly new at this time. I think this actually was around the time that they still had Blu-ray and the competing HD DVD format, which ultimately ended up not being the successful one and was discontinued. Kind of look back when you had the format war between VHS and Betamax way back in the day. Yeah, they got a friends aren't disposable, anti-drug ad here. Changing the game, the aftershocks of Manhunt's AO rating. AO, for those of you who don't know, that's adults only. That's the ESRB rating. That's like the harshest one you can possibly assign. I read somewhere that to date there have only been like 23 games ever released that have the adults only rating. Most of the stuff with more mature content just has the M for mature rating, which is 17 and up. Yeah, hunger gets what hunger wants. There's an ad for Ballpark Franks here. Then they got this good, the bad, and the ugly section here. And just a few things across varying systems. Got a Ballpark Franks, looks like has an ad that you could enter to win a Nintendo DS Lite back in the day. Yeah, when does this contest end? Entries supposed to proceed by August 31st, 2007. So obviously that contest is long over. Yeah, Michael Guillemot, I hope I'm pronouncing that name right. Looks like they like to highlight people in the game industry. That's pretty cool. You hear a lot of coverage about games, but you don't often talk about, the people behind them. So I definitely appreciate them doing something like this. John Woo presents Stranglehold. I didn't realize that, John Woo made a video game, so that's pretty interesting. Elite Speak, and these are like, gaming accessories. They got some Square Enix Keyblade replicas, Halo 3 accessories, some headsets. They've got a Twin Galaxies record book. I wonder if, I'm guessing that's probably changed a lot since then because there's all that outcry about Billy Mitchell supposedly being a fraud. I don't know exactly how true that is, and I'm not going to delve into that here, but definitely an issue I might want to look into later. And I wonder if they've made more of these record books. Yeah, in defensive short games, there's an ad here. And then there's a company called Jamster. Looks like they did wallpapers and maybe like ringtones and stuff. They got an August calendar here for stuff in the gaming industry. Speaking of Billy Mitchell, there's actually an ad here for The King of Kong, the movie about him and Steve Wiebe, the guys that were competing for the Donkey Kong record. And then on the other side here, they have an ad for the Bowflex home gym system. Yeah, Prototype. This is the cover story. Looks like they made this for the PS3 and the Xbox 360. Yeah, more stuff on Prototype here, some game screenshots. Again, not a game that I'm familiar with, but someone on our last episode had actually commented that it was a pretty good game back in the day. There's a lot of stuff that obviously fell through the cracks for me over the years, so I'm going back and learning a lot of stuff myself. Yeah, that's the end of the Prototype feature. Now they have Darksiders. Again, Darksiders, not Darkstalkers. I'm not going to make the same mistake I made earlier. And the front cover described this game as Zelda meets God of War. Interesting comparison there. And this looks very interesting. End of the article, got a few more of the Darksiders screenshots. Here we got to look at Metroid Prime 3 Corruption, which was the third and final game in the Metroid Prime trilogy. Although supposedly there's been a Metroid Prime 4 in the works for years. I don't know if that's actually been developed at all, or if it's just in development hell, but I would love to see another Metroid Prime game at some point. And then there was also that Metroid Prime Hunters game on the DS, but that was absolutely terrible. Horrible play control, and just didn't feel like a Metroid game at all, with all the emphasis on all the other characters and stuff. But Corruption was a decent game. I don't think any Metroid Prime game topped the 2002 original, although Metroid Prime 2 Echoes from 2004 was pretty good too. I'm hoping that gets the same remastering treatment that the first Metroid Prime get. Here's an ad for a game called The Heavenly Sword. I know I've heard that name before, but I don't think I've ever actually played the game. There's a Beowulf game here. This, of course, would have been around the time the Beowulf movie directed by Robert Zemeckis came out, so I guess they made a tie-in game, and I didn't even know they made a tie-in game, so that's pretty interesting. Yeah, Destroy All Humans, Path of the Furon. Again, Destroy All Humans, something I've heard of, but I've never actually played any of the games. Yeah, Condemned 2, Bloodshot. And then there's a random ad here. Yeah, do you have what it takes? It's got like pictures of dusty landscapes and tumbleweeds. But oddly, it's an ad for the United States Navy, which is really weird because the Navy usually operates in water. So I wonder if it's some kind of ironic statement. I don't know. Here there's ads for, or rather previews for World in Conflict and Need for Speed Pro Street. There's an ad for Medal of Honor Airborne. I don't know how many of those Medal of Honor games they've made, but there are tons of them dating back to the original PlayStation. And over here they actually have an ad for the Blue Dragon video game. This was actually designed by the late creator Akira Toriyama, the guy that created Dragon Ball, and also created character and monster designs for the Dragon Quest games. Ads here for The Agency and Insecticide. And down below, they've got a Honda ad, of all things. Yeah, Nintendo Power never actually advertised cars. It looks like the ads in Game Informer definitely reach out to a larger demographic. Okay, here we got some more previews. You know, BioShock. I've definitely heard of BioShock, but haven't actually played the game. Geometry Wars Galaxies. I remember those Geometry Wars games were a pretty big thing back in the day. And then Blue Dragon, the Akira Toriyama game that I just mentioned there in the middle. Yeah, damn shame about Akira Toriyama. Definitely one of the true visionaries in the entertainment world. And there was a new series he made called Sandland, and apparently that's on Hulu. And I've got Hulu through my Disney Plus subscription that I got with the Black Friday deal Disney Plus did. So I'm going to have to check that out. And then Dragon Ball Daima on there as well. Okay, there's an RPG here called Two Worlds. Looks like it can be played online and off. And then there's preview for Guitar Hero 3. And they got some cool guitars there, including a replica of Eddie Van Halen's infamous Frankenstein guitar. That actually looks pretty sweet. And I actually have met the bassist of Van Halen. His name is Michael Anthony. I've met him a few times over the years. If you go on my Facebook page, I've got some random photos with rock stars. I do have a few there with Van Halen bassist Michael Anthony. Very cool guy, and it's a shame they kind of gave him the axe after a while when they brought in Eddie's son. No disrespect to Wolfgang, who's a pretty cool dude in his own right. More previews. We got Conan and Haze. So I'm not sure if this Conan thing is supposed to be like an adaptation of Conan the Barbarian or something entirely different. But there you go. Pictures for those. Yeah, photo file. Mini previews with big pictures. We got Picross DS, Age of Empires 3, DK Jungle Climber, Brain Age 2, Lego Star Wars The Complete Saga, and Dynasty Warriors Gundam. I remember I've got an emulator somewhere, and I've got a Gundam game on there, like a Gundam Wing fighting game. And that's actually a lot of fun. It uses the same engine as the Power Rangers Fighting Edition game. Sadly, of course, that was before Gundam Wing was a thing in the United States, so it never got released over here. Yeah, Game of the Month, The Darkness. And then there's a reviews index. A look at SimCity DS. I remember they had a SimCity game on the Super Nintendo back when the Super Nintendo first came out. And I remember my little brother used to have a computer class in school, and he had a version of SimCity that he played in there that he seemed pretty enthralled with. Here's the reviews. The Darkness gets an 8.75 from both the Bottom Line and the Second Opinion. All Pro Football 2K8 gets an 8 and a 7.5. Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer only gets a 5 or a 6, depending on who you ask. Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix gets 6.5 and 6. Yeah, there's an NCAA football game that got an 8 and an 8.25. There is a GameStop ad here telling you to reserve the next John Madden football game. Even though John Madden's since passed on, they're still doing plenty of John Madden football video games. There's a review here for Rainbow Six Vegas, another one of those Tom Clancy games. Yeah, that got a 9 and an 8.5, so that actually did very well in the reviews. Yeah, I got games here. Grimoire, and then Shin Megami Tensei Persona 3. Those Persona games, I know those were a pretty big deal back in the day. Guitar Hero Rocks the 80s, sort of an expansion pack. Actually a standalone game, but they charged the full $50 for it, which I think was not a very good thing at the time. And then they have Big Brain Academy. They had a lot of those like brain enhancer games for the DS back in the day. I remember Nintendo Power didn't even review those because they didn't really consider them games. Yeah, Dirt, the racing game we talked about earlier, that got an 8. Tenchu Z got a 6.5, 6.25. That game called Overlord, that got a 7.5 from both reviewers. Shadowrun, I remember Shadowrun was like an old game way back in the day. I think it might have been a PC game even. And then Halo 2 got an 8 from both reviewers. Yeah, SimCity DS, Cookie and Cream, I don't know what that is. Dungeon Maker, Hunting Ground, handheld quickies. They got things like a New York Times crosswords game, Final Fantasy II Anniversary Edition for the PSP, Tales of the World, Planet Puzzle League for the Nintendo DS. Yeah, got the charts here. Pokemon Diamond's been the best seller in these 3 issues I've been going through. Got an ad over here for UAT. They always have ads for these game design schools. Guess they want to get people into all that. Full Sail real world education here. Got some codes for Mortal Kombat Armageddon, Prince of Persia Classic, The Darkness. And like I said, these secrets, Nintendo Power had a similar section called Classified Information. And GamePro magazine had something similar called Secret, it was called SWAT Pro, S-W-A-T, but it was like Secret Weapons and Tactics. I forget what the exact acronym was. Yeah, classic. Yeah, The Land Before Halo Marathon. Looks like these are some of the Marathon. This is like an older shooter game. Yeah, talk more about Prototype here. There's an ad for Collins College, another one of the game design schools. Crazy Taxi 2. Yeah, these are retro reviews. So Crazy Taxi 2's here. Baldur's Gate 2, Shadows of Amon, A-M-N, however you pronounce that. Space Harrier 2. Yeah, those Space Harrier games, that's some like old school attempts at, a 3D shooter. Got video game trivia here. Which was the first stage of Battletoads that truly made you want to punch the TV? 2, 3, 4, 6. The answer there would have to be 3 because that's the turbo tunnel where everyone gets frustrated and wants to quit. And then what else we got here? Yeah, talk about a few other games. Rankings for the trivia scores and so forth. There's an ad for a game called Stuntman Ignition. And then again on the back, we got that ad for Old Spice deodorant. So that's the end of my 3rd and final issue of Game Informer magazine. As always, I want to thank everyone that tuned in. Again, I know it's kind of a low turnout. Saturday at noon is kind of a busy time for people. Still trying to find the optimal time to do the streams, but so far that seems to maybe be the best time. If you're listening to this video, tell me when you think the best time to do a live stream is, because I'm certainly curious. And next week, I think we're going to try something a little different. We're going to actually start doing music magazines. Back in the day, when I first got into concerts in Vegas, I started writing for a magazine called Vegas Rocks. I don't have a whole lot of my old Vegas Rocks magazines still, because I cut a lot of them up to cut out my reviews and hang those up, but I got 2 issues here, so next week, maybe we'll take a look at these, because there's some pretty cool pictures and stuff with a lot of rock stars here, and some articles that I wrote myself, so I don't know how long it'll take to go through 1 issue, so depending on how long or how short that takes, I may either do 1 issue or both issues next week. Yeah, we got one with Raiding the Rockfold on the cover, and one with Count 77 on the cover, that being Danny the Count Coker, the guy from Counting Cars. He owns the venue Vamped out here, which is where I go for most of my concerts. So definitely going to be an interesting time next week. And back here, there's even an ad for a few shows that were going on back in the day. So at this time, unless there's any parting shots or last-minute comments, I'm going to end the live stream. I don't know if we actually have any viewers right now, but those of you that did tune in, you have my thanks, and I will certainly see you in my next live stream. Thanks for tuning in, and if you haven't already done so, be sure to subscribe to my channel and check out my other videos. I've got a lot of product unboxings, movie reviews, game reviews, music reviews, and, even the occasional toy review. Anyway, see you guys next time. Thanks for tuning in.